Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another Marvel Snap video. So it's time for our first post-patch mystery card pull. And so before I pull the card, I just want to say, if you guys are watching this content, we are really getting close to 500 subscribers, which is a huge, just a huge compliment and a huge milestone. And so if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, but you enjoy the content, consider subscribing. It really helps the channel out. All right, so let's go ahead and pull our card and see what we're working with today. So on reveal, your opponent draws 2 cards. So Maximus can be used in a couple of different ways. So the main use for Maximus that I can think of is using him in combination with Ronin. So Ronin gets an ongoing buff similar to a Devil Dinosaur, but it's reversed. So he gets +2 for every card that your opponent has. And so Maximus helps make sure that your opponent has a lot of cards. You can drop Maximus on turn 6, and then that's going to guarantee that there's 2 additional cards. But outside of that, he's not a bad power play for a turn 6. Where the cards won't necessarily matter. We have the Devil Dinosaur buff, so we don't see Devil Dinosaurs, or we won't see Devil Dinosaurs as often at 4 cost. So being able to drop this on turn 6 and get 7 power out of it and still have 3 mana to work with, that's not bad. It's a pretty good reward ratio, and you can split that power across different lanes. So let's see if we can build something with what we do have that would be able to kind of capitalize on his higher than average power. All right, so we ended up drafting a deck that feels like it should not win. It feels like it should not be competitive. But when I explain what each piece is intended to do, you'll understand why it's able to sneak out some wins. So Maximus being a mid cost, so a 3 cost, pretty high power card, what we wanted to do is kind of capitalize on that. We wanted to burst out power into one lane early, followed by 4, 5, and 6 being occupied by another combo. So first we have 0, which can be used in combination with Ebony Maw to be able to drop 9 power into a lane for 2 mana, 2 energy, and not have the downside of not being able to play cards in that location any longer. So a really easy way to get a lot of quick power out onto the board. And then with 0 and Ebony Maw, or the new featured location, we're able to drop Ebony Maw. It doesn't always flip until the next turn, and then we can drop Maximus as well. So Maximus being that kind of cap on that lane. So if we're able to drop 16 power on a single lane, we're going to be pretty competitive. The opponent's going to have to drop quite a few resources to compete with that lane. And so while they're trying to catch up on that lane, spread their power out across the board, turns 4, 5, and 6, what we mainly want to do is drop Omega Red, which we have covered in our previous video where we had said it was bad. We figured out a way to make it work. This is better. So ongoing, if you're ahead by 10 power here, +4 power to other locations. So turns 4, we're going to drop Omega Red. Turn 5, Iron Man, which everyone knows Iron Man, it doubles your power at that location. Turn 6, Onslaught, which is going to double both of those effects. So Omega Red's going to generate those 3 together equals something like a 44 power lane, which if you had nothing in those lanes prior to turn 4, odds of them being able to compete with 44 power is pretty small. So 44 power, it's going to send 8 power into the other lanes. If we already had 16 with these 3 cards alone, that now becomes 24. And so 24 is hard to compete with just by itself. So with us having that lane and another lane, and they have to get at least 8 power into that third lane, it makes it really difficult for them to stack all of their power together. Now, of course, this deck is really susceptible to an Enchantress, but the reason we chose this particular deck at this particular time, Devil Dino just had a nerf. It is fresh off the blocks. It's like 4 hours post-nerf. So the majority of people are now abandoning their ongoing cards, their ongoing counters, because you're not seeing ongoing cards as frequently. And so what we're wanting to do is kind of capitalize on the fact that people are loosening up on their ongoing counters and choosing other pieces. So like me personally, I've dropped Rogue from most of my list because you're just not seeing those ongoing abilities. This one kind of manipulates and uses that information to really perform very, very well. The rest of the deck is just filled up with fillers. So counters different things that are going to disrupt the opponent. So Okoye is now our 1-drop card, and it only gives every card in your deck +1. So it still feels okay if you don't draw into one of your other 1-drops, or you don't have one that you want to drop at that point. And then we have Cosmo, which on reveal abilities won't trigger at that location anymore. Debris to kind of disrupt some of the space. I really like Debris and just that disruption mechanism that she has. If you're able to sneak out and cap out a lane, it could swing that whole game in your favor. Then we have Shang-Chi for high-powered minions, and we have Red Skull. So on the off chance that we don't draw into all of the pieces of our combo by turn 6, we're going to have Red Skull in our back pocket. We can either just drop him by himself into like a Space Throne, or we can use a 0 along with him to not have the downside and do a 17 power turn 6 swing to compete for that last location. So maybe we got an Omega Red and an Iron Man, and so it's like 20 power, but we don't have the onslaught. We need to drop something else. We can drop Red Skull along with 0 to help swing one of the other locations. And so a lot of times you can sneak out wins just by having such a high powered card in your hand that you can drop. And so overall, it doesn't feel like the most cohesive deck. So a lot of decks that I run, they have a lot of combo pieces. So they're looking at Storm Juggernaut, they're looking at, Lady Sif Ghost Rider, it's looking at Sunspot Infinite, all these really cohesive and what feel like really powerful combos. But this one only has a few, and then it focuses on disrupting everything else that the opponent wants to do. We just need 2 lanes, and that's all we're focusing on. If we can get them to spread out their power across the 3 locations, it becomes hard for them to compete with just the raw power that our early cards have, and then the really powerful effects that our late cards have. And so that's the general idea. We are going to go ahead and jump into some games. I'm really excited to bring this deck to you guys. It has performed really, really well. In my testing, I think it is going to be a very solid choice for the first few days of the post-patch meta, while people try to figure out what deck is going to be good and what's going to kind of rise to the surface. So this post-patch world is a little bit hectic. It's hard to really pin down what your opponent's doing, what options they have, what they're running, because it's no longer the same exact thing time after time. And maybe we'll settle back into some kind of like standard meta, but as of right now, it feels very, very almost chaotic. And so we are running just a high power type deck where we are trying to lock down 1 or 2 lanes, lock down 1 lane, and then in our other lane, we're going to drop 4, 5, and 6 cost cards. So being Omega Red, Iron Man, and then ideally Onslaught, so that we can really expand that lead and really just drive home 1 lane, and it should help us win the other. But unfortunately, we didn't really draw into any of our high power cards, so we put some high power, just value cards into the early deck, so being like Ebony Maw. So we got Ebony Maw, we have our new card in Maximus, and then we have a few other just general tech cards in between to try and help win that lane, or win that 1 mid lane. This doesn't feel good. So we have to be winning by 10, and right now we're not. Maybe with Iron Man we can get there, but then it's going to be tough. If they drop resources here, then we end up losing. But I think it's worth a shot. I think we let it play out. So the idea is we can drop a couple of cards in a lane leading up to turn 3 where we drop Maximus. And then we can just focus all the rest of our cards on 1 lane. Do we have it? Yeah, we do. Oh, I forgot. Ongoing effects are doubled. We got this. No worries. Not a bad location for our first one out, but where the true test will come in is during games where we don't have Onslaught Citadel, where we have some just standard locations. I know that it's still early on in the patch, but so far it feels pretty solid. It feels like it is like there's no set deck right now that is advantageous. So they did buff some decent things. They nerfed some things that definitely needed it. but I haven't seen a necessarily front runner. So you can always still do the large minion decks. So the Infinite partnered with the Sunspot. I don't know. It feels very, very varied at this point. We also teched into this deck, and we haven't drawn it yet, a Killmonger. Ooh, so only one card can be here for each player. So we can use that in a couple of ways. Mainly by locking it out with maybe like a Red Skull. And then if we have our Omega Red, that will also be able to feed in and help these other lanes out. And so I think I wait here. I don't think I drop Ebony Maw just yet. And I see what the last location is before I make that choice. And he uses Yondu, which grabs a rock. That's unfortunate for him. But thank you for clearing out the rock. Hopefully I don't draw a new one. I do draw a new one. Okay. So cards here are not revealed until the game ends. And so that is a perfect slot for my Maximus, for my Ebony Maw. And then we can kind of play around it from there. Oh my gosh. So many rocks. Oh, and we can't play it. We should have played it last turn because it was turn 3. So do we think he plays a large minion here and ends up having to turn it? I think maybe. And then if he plays something like a Green Goblin here, oh no, he's changing it with Scarlet Witch. Interesting. And so no cards are revealed this turn, meaning that this one won't get revealed, and my 2 won't get revealed. They wouldn't have got revealed anyways. Never mind. So now we draw into the Omega Red, but I think it's a little too late. I mean, maybe not. Maybe we still feed into it like this, and then if we draw into 0, we can use 0 and Red Skull to try to have this lane locked down by at least 10. That's our tentative plan. That's what we're going to try. If it works out like that, I don't know, probably not. But that's what we're wanting to try. Is this the hill that we go down fighting on? No, not that hill. We don't want that hill. So it depends on how many cards he drops in this location. Or do we maybe actually drop Red Skull over here? It gives them 2, 4, 6. That's still an 8 power upside for us. And then we can drop a rock. Because I think they will anticipate us playing a card here. So I think they're going to invest their resources in mid. I think. That's what I would do if I saw an Omega Red. So I'm actually going to kind of go against that and play over in Subterranean instead. They did not do what I thought they would at all. Maybe I can still win this lane. Yeah, I pushed it. I pushed that lane. No, I didn't. We lost that lane. Oh, wow. But we won the other 2. So they were just going to let me swing this location by more than 10? I feel like a lot of people are probably going to play a little clunky for the next few days, because everyone got so used to running a Nova or a Devil Dino or the Devil Dino Collector that I think they maybe didn't experiment with all these other decks, and now they're forced to because the other one just doesn't work the same. We're going to go ahead and jump into another one. So we have a Xandar, and we have an Ebony Maw. I think I wait one turn. I see what this location is. I may drop Ebony Maw in a location, and then that'll free us up to drop Maximus and whatever else we draw on turn 3 or 4. And we have our power kind of split a little bit. We have both of them out on the board so that we can benefit from Omega Red's condition when it triggers. Ooh. And so with Lemuria, nothing is going to turn over this turn. So that means we're going to be able to stack both our Ebony Maw and our Maximus in the same lane without having the potential downside, or without locking ourselves off with Maw. So they do play their cards over in Xandar. Ooh, and we draw into Clintar, which is cards have -2 power. I think we still go with this because we have a very high-powered deck here. And they're running strong guys, so having Maximus at the very last turn would have been nice, to be able to negate that strong guy bonus by making them draw cards after everything else has been resolved. But we draw into our Omega Red. We're going to stack our cards here. We're going to stack our cards as much as we can. Maybe we'll draw into Iron Man, which would be ideal. If not, then I think we just go ahead and roll the dice. We drop Red Skull, hope that they don't drop very many resources, and we can take the lane, because they're capping out Xandar. Wow, I'm not even competing for Xandar, so that's a lot of resources in a lane that I don't want. So we do draw into Iron Man, so I think we'll be able to get a really big high roll here. So we're gonna have the Omega Red, the Iron Man, and the Onslaught to double those effects. So Iron Man's going to quadruple our stats, which are going to be 13. So it's going to be, what, 13, 26, 39? Is that right? So 39 is going to be pretty big. I think it'll be large enough to hold down that Omega Red condition. And then Omega Red's going to give +8 to these other lanes. And then we do have Killmonger in as a tech card. If we're running into like swarm decks, we'll be able to kind of cancel those out, hold it till the last turn, and then just cheese out a win. So I think this is the play. I don't think, unless they have an Enchantress, I don't think they can stop us at this point, no matter what they drop. Let's snap, probably make them concede, but I do want to, whenever I'm playing outside of recording, I snap a lot more aggressively, a lot differently than whenever I'm kind of talking through the different scenarios. I'm making kind of judgment calls and anticipations. I'm making reads on what the opponent's plays will be. Oh, right. So the opponent retreated. GG. I don't think there was anything they could have dropped that would have won it for him anyways. So, so far this deck has felt really solid. I was worried whenever I put it together, but I think because of the high power early minions, that helps us almost lock down a lane, and then Omega Red can help turn it. So the opponent is going to have to invest resources in those other lanes and kind of spread out their power, where we can spread out that power easily with those lower cost, higher power cards, and then just drop all of our combos into one lane. Now, this deck is susceptible to Enchantress, but outside of that, it's not too, it feels pretty good. So we draw into Maw and our Maximus. So what I'm thinking we do is we drop our Ebony Maw on turn 2. Never mind, that won't work. It's just this turn. Had this been the next location, it would have been great. And we get rocks in our hand, which is never enjoyable. Do I ever drop Ebony Maw just into a location? Next turn I drop Maximus, because they've passed every turn so far. They're going to be almost... That doesn't feel good. So I am going to drop Maximus here. And I think the hope is that they drop something like... That could have been really bad with their morph. I think the hope is that they drop something like an 8 power, a 9 power, a 10 power card, and then we're able to swing it with Omega Red. Is the hope anyways. And so I think we drop Cosmo in Subterranea, because our cards aren't on reveal type cards. Our cards are ongoing, except for Zero, but I think it'll be okay in that regard. And so Jubilee's on reveal ability is not going to be able to trigger because of our Cosmo. And so I think we drop Iron Man here. That's an ongoing ability. I think we drop Iron Man here, and we just kind of see what they play and where they play it. If we draw into Omega Red, I think that may do us quite a bit of... So they waived, and I think they were anticipating it ramping their cards down, but it was turn 6, so I don't know why that necessarily would have mattered that it was waived, other than I couldn't play multiple cards. I don't know. I don't know what their play line was, other than maybe getting frustrated at that 2 on reveal abilities in a row didn't trigger. But I will take the cube. Okay, so we have Miriam and nothing in hand to play. It feels bad. It feels really, really bad. But at least we'll be able to drop just the Maximus into Atlantis. And they're going to have 6 cards here after they draw, right? So 6 cards. I don't think we'll get a lot of downside out of dropping Maximus this turn. Oh, so this is one of the new locations, the Icebox. Give a card in each player's hand plus 1 cost. So it's similar to the Iceman, but both players receive the negative effect. And so it doesn't say it's capped out at 6. So if it hits a 6 cost card, it feels really, really, really bad. I think you end up having to pay 7 for it. And so it becomes almost impossible without additional resources to then summon that. And so Expansion coming in, it did them kind of dirty with Hawkeye. What does it drop for us? Yellow Jacket, not much better, so that they can at least get some upside out of theirs. But we could destroy theirs with our Killmonger if we need. So since they have Angela in this lane, I kind of anticipate that they're going to drop quite a bit of resources, or quite a few resources there. So I'm going to drop Omega Red on this right-hand side and just assume that they're going to abandon they're not. That's good to know. That's good to know. That's good to know. It's a very, very bad read. What do they draw in? Oh, Chavez. It didn't display for a minute. Okay. So, do we abandon our hope of... Maybe not. Maybe we drop Shang-Chi. Whoa. Maybe we drop Shang-Chi and then Onslaught. So Shang-Chi will destroy their Chavez, bring them back down to 4. It'll bring us back up to 10. Can we reach that trigger is the question. I don't know is the answer. And then they have Vision. Okay. And there's Iron Man. So with Iron Man, we could almost lock in the fact that we would have a plus 10 lead. Maybe not. So Iron Man would pump us up to 20. They would have to drop 6 or more. And so I think maybe they are going to drop their... So maybe they move Vision over here. Or if they move Vision here, oh boy. Depending what they drop and where they play, I think they drop like a Chavez here and then just move Vision over. But then that still doesn't win us both lanes. I don't know a good way to guarantee that we're going to win it. So he does move Vision over. But I think we're able to win that lane, so we don't even need the Omega Red buff. Because unless his card in the Icebox, it sends something over into both lanes. But Atlantis, it's not going to be quite strong enough to compete with our Maximus. The one in X-Mansion, it's not going to be enough to swing that location, so it was really, really close. But it's a lot harder to read what the opponent's going to do now that the meta is just all over the place. And so that was very, very close, very good game. We will take our 2 cubes and feel fortunate about it. Also, daily card booster exceeded. I feel like I'm going to be tapping against that pretty much daily. Oh, so we have a new bot avatar. I haven't seen this one before. This one being our Ebony Maw. And so I like it. I think all of these, it's weird that they have all of these unreleased avatars that already placed and pre-placed into bots. I would think it'd be so funny if they played cards that were unreleased, because it's unreleased avatar. Could they have an unreleased deck that they use for testing purposes? That would be so cool to see a card that's unreleased get played. That would be amazing. Just out of nowhere, just the dream. So we had to skip our first all of our turns. So that felt really, really bad. But we dropped debris, and they dropped Mantis to steal one of our cards. We do have our 4, 5, 6 combo in hand, though. It's just a matter of, would it be enough to swing this lane with only 3 power? I think we're going to at least start playing it out and see how it goes. So this lane, of course, we'll cap this one out. It will make their Lizard 1. Lizard's a really bad card to play. It's really clunky. And so then the only thing we have to worry about in that lane is their Devil Dino. But I think with Iron Man and Onslaught, I think we overcome that by a pretty large margin. And so then we should be able to get 8 power across the board. Do we get free cubes, or do we donate free cubes? I feel like we're going to donate free cubes to a bot, but let's do it anyways. And then we drop our Onslaught, which is going to turn this left lane into something like a 40-something power lane. And they just drop Agent 13, so their Lizard's going to go down. I think we should have it by more than 10. I don't think that should be an issue at all. Oh, no, 44, yeah. And then, of course, our 8 is enough to swing that right-hand side because they stacked all their resources. So doesn't feel like a good win, but 8 cubes is 8 cubes. Hello there, Backtoon. And so we do have our Okoye to buff up the cards in our deck, which should help with the rest of the combo. We have Omega Red, Iron Man. We just need to draw into Onslaught, and then some other pieces. Ideally, we could draw Ebony Maw. I'm going to go ahead and just drop our 0 and hope that we get something playable. If not, we get Maximus. What a high roll. It was an insanely high roll. So what we can do is we can drop Maximus here. We could also drop him into the Space Throne, but I don't feel like that's as beneficial. And then we're going to drop our Omega Red, our Iron Man, and then our Onslaught to hopefully have a +8 to all of the other lanes, which should be able to, if it doesn't win us this one, because we already have quite a bit of power, then hopefully it would win us the Space Throne. We just kind of have to see what they drop and they got a lot of cards coming out. So they have a Viper that they dropped first. So did they do that out of order, or did they just want a bigger Carnage? Oh, cards here are not revealed until the game ends. Oh my. Okay. I was thinking it was because Lemuria, but... And then we do draw into Onslaught. So let's go ahead and snap, because we are in a really, really good position here. They're not going to be able to compete with us in Lemuria unless they have an Enchantress. But because of the Devil Dino nerf, a lot of people took those key pieces out. And so Doc Ock, oh no, Mr. Doc. Okay, that's good. He can't draw 4. Boy, that was a wave of emotion. I thought it was going to draw 4 of our cards into the Space Throne, because that's what Doc Ock's ability does. On reveal, pull 4 random cards. But the Space Throne took priority over being able to draw multiple cards in, thankfully. And then we, of course, won that lane because of Red Skull. We were probably going to be winning this one. They ended up conceding, but this deck feels really, really solid. Let me get our stats real quick. Okay, so this was game 10. We have won 8 games out of 10. And I believe 4 or 5 of them were concedes. A few came all the way through. Only 1 or 2 were against bots. And so overall, this deck, I think this is a much better iteration of the Power Dispersion deck that I had. It kind of focuses on some key pieces of Power Dispersion, and then it has Red Skull in case you don't draw into your dispersion pieces to be able to compete with one of the other lanes. It has some high power early cards in like Maximus, Ebony Maw, and then some counter cards in Killmonger, Cosmo, Shang-Chi to really counter those other decks that you're going to run into. So this deck feels a lot more solid than I thought it would, and it may be just because people are experimenting with the meta, but overall, I have really enjoyed this deck. It's not quite as fun as flooding their board with debris tokens, but it does feel pretty consistent. It feels like we are very, very competitive with this deck, and we have a lot of choices and options to choose from as we're playing it and as we draw into our cards and understand what we have. 8 wins, 2 losses for a deck that we drafted out of our brand new card. And with Maximus, having Ronin is going to help make him even more consistent, and he'd be able to fit into other decks just as a 2-piece combo. So the last turn you could drop Ronin, and then the last turn you could drop your Maximus along with some other 3-cost card, maybe Mystique. So maybe Ronin on 5, Mystique and Maximus on 6. But overall, for the first deck draft after the patch, it feels really good. It feels really solid. It feels like it's going to be competitive, at least in this period of unknown, where the meta is not really defined. You don't have one set deck that everyone is like, yep, that is the best. I'm running that one and nothing else. And so it's a time of experimentation, so it's a lot of fun. And so if you can, jump in, play some games. They are a lot of fun right now. It's not as repetitive as it was before. But I am going to go ahead and end the video there. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This has been TLSG. Later, guys.